Chapter 23. Trees. On the 9th day after surgery, just before noon, something strange occurred. I was alone in the room and suddenly saw clouds and trees. Very distinctly I screamed, "I can see! I can see!" and buzzed the nurse to tell her to call Dr. Pole. When she came into the room, I said, "I can see trees and clouds." "Where?" "Right over there," I said, pointing. "But you aren't even looking out the window." "I can see them," I insisted. "The sky is blue, not a cloud in it, and we're too high up for you to see treetops." I couldn't believe her. Is there something in the room that looks like clouds and trees? A painting, maybe? "Nothing on these walls, they're green." "There's not a thing on them," she said. "I tell you, I can see them." "Okay, I'll put it on your chart. Dr. Pole is in surgery," the nurse said. In a few minutes, the clouds and trees disappeared, and I broke into tears. When my parents came in after lunch, I asked them to look out the window to see if there were clouds and trees out there. "Fluffy white clouds and green trees," I said. "I saw them." They were slow to answer. "Well, that's wonderful, Philip," my father said. The tone of his voice said he felt something else. Alarm. My mother said, "You told the nurse?" She didn't believe me. "Well, those are nice things to see," said my mother. Her tone said she might agree with the nurse that the operation had affected my brain. I got angry. "I did see them!" "Do you see them now?" my father asked. "No!" I shouted. They stayed until late afternoons. We walked along the hallways for a while. I'd been on my feet for more than a week, went to the Johnny by myself, even took showers by myself. This was my father's last visit. He was flying back to Curacao that night on Pan Am. He kissed me and hugged me, saying he knew I'd have my sight back soon. But his voice was hollow. About an hour later, I heard Dr. Pole's voice in the hallway. Then he came in. "What's going on in here?" "Miss Evans told me you were seeing things." I said I'd seen things. "Nobody believes me, but I saw trees and clouds today." He laughed, which surprised me. "Right on schedule. Didn't I tell you about Anton's syndrome?" "No." Harmless hallucinations. You know what a hallucination is? Not really. It's a sensory experience of something that does not exist outside the mind. I was seeing something that wasn't there? I could feel my world crumbling, my hopes gone. "Don't look so confounded miserable. This means you're healing. Happens to people who've had their optical lobes disturbed. That nerve is used to seeing things. If you've got a blanked out area, the brain will substitute. You'll be seeing a lot of things. Enjoy the scenery. You might see family, friends, your house down on the island, and when people tell you they can't see what you see, just say, 'Too bad.'" Over the next 3 or 4 days, I saw many images of the past. The Shawtagat with sailboats on it, Mount St. Christopherberg, the highest in Curacao, the swinging pontoon bridge at the harbor entrance, my father, Stukat, even Heinrich von Boven. The hallucinations never came at the same time of the day, and I could not program them, couldn't order my mind to see something, then have it appeared. I think it was on the afternoon of the 14th day after the operation that I saw Timothy. He was standing in the water up to his knees, and I was certain he was at the south beach of Arcay. Though I'd never seen it, of course, he wasn't saying anything, just smiling at me. I knew on that day that my curtain of darkness would soon roll back. It happened in the early morning 2 days later. I awakened to an orange light in the room. The nurses had never drawn the blinds. There had been no need for that. The orange light filled the room, and the walls were indeed green. I looked around, my heart thudding. "I can see," I said to myself. "I can see." Just to test myself, I looked at the glass of water on the bedside table, then touched it. It was no Anton syndrome glass, no hallucination glass. It was real, full of water. I jumped out of bed and went to the window and looked out. It was dawn over New York City. I saw skyline and trees and buildings and people and cars and trucks. I whirled around and ran down the hall shouting, "I can see, Timothy! I can see! I can see!" One of the night nurses grabbed me and said, "Yes, yes, yes. Please hush," and got me back to my room, where I sat by the window just looking out as the orange lights of sunrise turned to yellow. I was seeing daylight for the first time since April. The nurses called my mother and Dr. Pohl, and about a half hour later he rushed into the room wearing a sweatshirt, his hair mussed. There were tears in the eyes of that rough, gruff man. I saw them, glistening like morning dew. He hugged me, murmuring, "Thank God. Oh, thank God."